There we are. We have just started. Good morning. Today is July the 22nd, 2023. This is a Saturday service. Glad that you are here in attendance. Um, wow, this is exciting. This is Saturday, July the 22nd. This is a day that I have been looking forward to for a long while. I'll explain in a second, but first let me put all my friends who have joined on video. Let me put you guys all on the screen so you can wave and say hello to the people watching on Facebook and on YouTube. Good morning.
Hi.
Good morning. There we all are. And I go back to the less dizzying view like this and get rid of the time and get rid of the date. Whoopsie. Get rid of the date. There we are. So good morning, my friends. I have been looking forward to today for a long while. There was a date back in November when I'm working on my book, and I thought this is never going to end. It was November. It was dark skies. It was rainy, and I said, "Hey, here's the book that I'm working on called Rabbi Brian." There it is. Rabbi Brian's Highly Unorthodox Gospel. The subtitle got changed since then, but we did like the fact that Highly Unorthodox Gospel spells out the word hug. I have been working on this book for over 2 years, and I'm getting closer to it happening. Now, today is officially a book launch party.
Right.
And I like to think of it the same way that when you're 10 years old, it's very important that your birthday be celebrated on your birthday. I am not 10 years old. My book
Chronologically, maybe.
My book is far from, it is not done. I've been working. It came back from the beta readers recently, and I got some wonderful notes from all of those people. And I have a meeting. I met with the developmental editor again on Thursday, and we are cleaning it up. The book goes to the literary agent on August 1st. So the book launch party, when I set this in November, I didn't know if I was hoping it would be at the literary agents by now. It is not. It will go to her on August 1st, and then on August 9th, she and I will have a conversation about where it goes and what happens to it. But I would love to spend a moment this morning to read a little bit of the beginning of the book. And oh, that's not the page. There it is. Here's the beginning. The very beginning is a quote from Rumi, and it says this: "Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built up against it." And that's really the premise of the book, is that love is out there. We are the ones who need to get further in. And I'll read you the very beginning of the book. Remember, this is still a work in progress, but here's the beginning. The Epistles. 1. Word came to Rabbi Brian of Portland, Oregon, telling them to proclaim unto the great cities, "The heart of religion is to practice love and kindness, take your religious lives into your own hand, and calm down a bit." But I don't rabbi like that anymore. I dropped out of organized religion. I teach math in high schools. Perfect. Write an honest, narrative-driven, big idea book and tour around preaching compassion, religious self-empowerment, freedom, and love for all people, no matter their spiritual or religious leanings, and try to enjoy yourself and make the book fun. 2. I'm Rabbi Brian, the author of this Bible-looking book. I'm glad to meet you and honored you're reading these words. My life has become a laboratory study of what happens when a clergy person prioritizes kindness, love, and acceptance over group membership and identity. I worked as a regular rabbi, pretending that the benefits of tribal affiliation outweighed the logic of a humanistic universal morality, but I couldn't do that too long. I always had a Hintergedanken, a thought always present in the back of mind, that God would look at the different religions of the world, be taken aback, laugh, and say, "Wait, what? You made teams?" And then there's a footnote, very important footnote, that says, "Please do not infer from the use of the word made of the letters God, or from the previous words about word coming to me, that I believe that God exists outside of me with a discernible auditory voice. We've just started the book. We have many pages to dive into what this word God means. I'm not pushing Judaism or any other set combination package of thoughts and rituals. I'm pushing love and kindness. If you are a Jew, a Christian, a humanist, an atheist, a lawyer, or a Canadian, or any most other identifier, and or if you are confused about the word God, you are totally welcome here. This book is about love. 3. For the next 415 pages, I'd like to help you redouble down in your commitment to live a life of patience, kindness, and blessing, with less anger and shame, a life filled with more love. This book might or might not impact your attendance at a house of worship, and this book might or might not change your relationship with the God of your understanding and how you define that word. We'll be doing all this good stuff while remaining delightfully free from dogma or me asking you to believe in anything beyond belief, like a God who hears or have the discernible voice telling me to write this book. If you are all right with this, then yippee, keep reading. This book is for you. I'm delighted you're reading these words. And then there was a footnote here after a God who hears or has a discernible voice. It says, and I totally get how this might feel untrustworthy, telling you I've gotten a calling from, and then telling you that you don't need to believe anyone who got a calling. Please bear with me. We're only 4 pages in. And then the book begins from there. So, where we are right. There we are right now. And I'm going to show you guys, if I can find it, the index at the back of the book. And then the rest of the book, you'll have to wait.
Does it have gold on the side?
I would like it to have gold on the side, but this is...
I want one with gold on the side.
Emily, if it's not how it's made, I will have one made special for you and for me. So here's the index at the back of the book. Index is on page 417. Index is God and all the page numbers where God is mentioned. God in a box, the 3 pages where that is mentioned. Hoots the owl, the 1 page where that famous philosopher is mentioned. The word recursive, which is only mentioned on page 417, which is actually the page of the index. I thought that was really clever and funny. Salsa gets mentioned 3 times, and you all have heard about my morning smoothie. That gets mentioned 4 times in the book. So that's all we have so far for a book preview. I thank you guys for bearing with. Some of you were beta readers of the book, and some of you who are beta readers of the book are on screen right now. So let me thank you. Where are you? There you are, Anne. There you are, Jordan. Thank you for reading and for giving comments. I don't think I'm missing anyone else who had the dubious honor of having to read the whole thing and try as best as possible to give high-level notes. It has been just a great learning process. So yes, the book is not launched today, and we're okay with that. We've been talking. I'm going to be quiet for a second and collect my thoughts. Let me look at all your faces. Hi, faces. Hi, people. Glad you're here. Very glad you're here. I wanted to do a little bit of review, starting with something. Hold on. Well, let me actually just start with this before we get to review. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself you have built up against it. Your task is not to seek love, but to find all the barriers within yourself that you have built up against it. Let me take a quick survey of all of you who are watching. Does that quote ring true to you? Let me see your hands. Yeah. How many of us are seeking love hard? How many of us want to have more love in our lives? And that seems to be just about everyone. I will not mention anyone by name who didn't raise their hand, because that would be the opposite of love. That we all want more love, and probably the best way to get more love is, don't answer that quite yet, but I want you to think of an answer.
Give more love.
According to this quote, the best way for us to find more love in our life would be to do blank. This is kind of imagine that this was a worksheet and you were to fill in a 2 to 3 sentence response. What would you fill in based on this? Your task is not to seek love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself you have built up against it. Could you come up with a 2 to 3 sentence response? Rob, you will be our first one to answer. I got you there. And then Michael, and then I'd love to hear from people who would not be identified as straight white men as well. Older straight white men. What would you have for an answer? Let's start with Rob and then Michael. What would you say, Rob? Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built up against it. What do you say, Rob? Rob, you are on mute, which makes it hard to disagree with you.
I get my hair colored like Maria.
That would help you to break down the barriers if you had your...
Absolutely.
It would. Absolutely.
Okay, well...
Your hair's great today, Maria.
Wait. Okay, I'm going to go with you. So, Rob, if you think one of the paths towards having more love would be to have hair like Maria, and Emily, you just agreed as well, it would seem to me that we should all encourage you to come back next week festooned with colorful hair. Rob, Emily, either of you going to do that?
No.
Okay. Emily, I think we might be.
It's not for myself.
Okay, and Emily, what do you say?
I changed my mind.
I think you guys just perfectly hit what this is about. Is we all know a thing or two that we should or could do, but then we don't do it. Isn't that interesting? Michael, what do you say?
Well, I'm glad you're starting with this and coming right out of the, what do the racehorses do?
Right out of the gate.
Right out of the gate. The issue is not love, 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 and reduce everything to love, but the issue is, the examined self.
Yeah.
So to speak. That which is, it's not like love your neighbor as yourself, but what's hateful to you, don't do to your fellow person.
And including ourselves.
It's the examined life we're talking about. Love is not the answer, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm glad you're,
okay. And
this is the direction you're going in.
Well, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael. Ahava, what do you got?
To put love into the public, societal, and cultural discourse and identity.
That's what you think you should be doing.
I think that's what we should all be doing.
That's what we should all be doing. Are you willing to do it yourself?
I am doing it myself.
Okay, wonderful. And then Harold and/or Connie, I don't know who's got their hand raised.
I got it.
Go ahead, Harold.
I think this breaking down the barriers is kind of an interesting comment because of first impressions. When I see you, I see a fuzzy man with a fuzzy hat and a fuzzy face. Is that something I want to get involved with? So the initial barrier is the first impression, and we've got to somehow overcome first impressions because they're killing us.
And if we all had rainbow hair, it would be a way. Or if we had purple hair, you don't have to go full rainbow. If you had purple hair, people would look at you and say, well, that's somebody who certainly, or you had a red clown nose on your face, as John was rocking moments ago, that would be a visual. It's kind of like a dog wagging its tail. You would say, oh, that person's got rainbow hair. They must be enjoyable. Or you see an old woman wearing purple and you say, oh, that person knows where it's at.
Or just the opposite. I see John wearing a red nose and a funny hat, and I say, he's crazy. I don't want anything to do with him.
Okay. It is very hard to right, and you're right, Harold. It's very hard for us to know how what we mean to communicate to others is being interpreted by others.
No.
Right. I clowned for 10 years, and I can tell you there's just about no middle ground in appearance. Either
Okay.
you come in dressed in a clown suit and they love you, or they turn around and run. And this goes for kids and adults both.
Yeah.
So that first impression is extremely important in how you make a contact and how they make a contact to you.
Correct. I want to hear more at a later point about you as a clown and what you learned. And I also at some point want to hear from Connie of what it was like to be married. Like Jane thinks she's married to a clown, but I didn't actually do it professionally. Avon, what say you? And then Betsy. Oh, Avon, we cannot hear you, my friend. I don't know why.
Taking my mute off. Can you hear me now?
That much better.
Okay. Initially when you read it, I heard, multiple people's responses immediately were about love others. The answer is not to try to get love for you, is to love others.
Yeah,
and it obviously comes back. But I don't know that that's actually true if you have barriers to receiving love, which
Right.
I think all of us are riddled with insecurities and shit, where if someone was like, oh, I love that about you, you'd be like, I'm trying to change that. I'm ashamed of that. That's one of my flaws, that I'm, so diligently, like, I have a friend who genuinely said to me, I love how judgmental you are. And I was like, oh, are you sure?
Right.
But it was funny, and they felt validated by the crap I said. And so I think one of the things is also barriers to receiving love, is that you can seek love, but if you can't accept it once it's there, you've wasted your time.
I sent my book to 10 different beta readers. 8 of them loved the whole thing. 2 of them I paid more attention to. Quick show of hands. How many of us have a hard time taking in a compliment? Okay, right? I don't think I need to spell that one out. Compliments are like little bits of love. We have a hard time taking in a compliment. I think that fits this quote. Our task is not to seek love, but merely seek and find all the barriers within ourselves we have built up against it. We don't take them in. Betsy, and then Joe.
I would say the first step to getting more love in the world is to love ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. And we don't do a great job of it. And my question, I guess all of our question is why?
You read that.
Go ahead, Joe.
Well, my comment is kind of a piggyback on Avon's comment, and then kind of ties into what you just asked, why? And for me, I'm afraid.
Can you give us a little more? Yeah. I'm afraid of what?
I'm afraid because the way love was taught to me was not necessarily healthy or appropriate.
Yeah.
And so I've had to do a lot of work to be willing to let down my own guard, because I have safeguarded myself because I had to, because the love that was given me was not appropriate or healthy.
Right.
And so it has taken it also, I think there's a trust factor in there too.
Yep.
Because it wasn't appropriately doled out as healthy. I have to trust you first, then I might love you next.
And I think we could put that reflexively. In order for me to love myself, I have to trust myself. I have to trust myself over those voices that told me, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand, but how many of us got messages we are not deserving of love? Right? That's a really fucked up hard thing. We all got messages we're not deserving of love. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross talks about this. Aaron, let me take your comment, and then I'm going to jump back to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Go. Oh, wait. Before Aaron, I got a beautiful thing here from our friend Spring Phoenix on YouTube. Some of the barriers are there because being harmed in the past. To bring down walls requires courage and resilience. Thank you, my friend. Aaron, what do you say?
Okay. For me, I have a lot of skepticism for love as a self-protection. To protect yourself from people who aren't authentic.
I'm going to protect myself.
On there.
How many of us, show of hands on that one, how many of us protect ourselves by not allowing love in? Right? It's really hard. So let me bump back to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross for a moment. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says that most of the love that we get is conditional, especially as children.
Yep.
You went pee-pee in the potty. Good. You didn't go pee-pee in the potty. Not so good. She goes so far as to say, she uses the word, and it's a triggery word, but bear with me. She says the love that we get in our childhood is often prostitution. That we have to sell off a part of our authentic self in order to please the power around us. We have to sell off who we are in order to buy what feels like love, but it's not really love. So to bring us back to this quote, to seek out the barriers within ourselves we have built up against it, some of that was protection. Some of that was you. Okay.
Isn't contractual love to some extent marriage? I'm not saying it's the same thing. Just saying that there's a certain amount that is good that's going on. I don't want to say that's all it is, but
yeah. Jane asked me to clean up the closet that has the suitcases in it. I'm going to show Jane love by doing this task that I don't want to do. Carol, you look poised to say something.
I disagreed with your reaction to the comments you got from your beta group. I think you thought that everyone loving it was a gift to you, when in fact the people who had comments about it were taking much more time and were saying what they thought would be helpful to you. You don't need someone to say good boy.
Oh, wait, slow down. So both sets made a lot of comments. Oh,
but that's not how you presented it. You said the first 8 just loved it.
No. Thank you. The first 8 loved it, and they told me what parts they liked, and they told me. And then there were 2 who did not like my premise, who didn't like what I was talking about, and I found myself more captivated by the criticisms. And how am I going to turn them from not liking what I was saying to turning them into liking what I was saying, as opposed to spending the time sitting in the joy that 8 out of 10 people said, this is amazing, I love what you're doing.
Well, what I have learned is that I can learn more from the people who criticize me than those who compliment me.
Okay, and help me with one extension of that, Carol. How is that when it's within my own system, within me as my own person? Am I being loving to myself by telling myself I'm not there yet and I need to go further and push myself harder?
Yes, I think that's very loving, because I think our job is to persevere, that we are here to endure, to persevere, to not give up. And there are times when we're tempted to give up, and when we say, no, you've come this far. As we say to the snail, you can climb Mount Everest, but you have to go slowly.
Correct. Michael, thank you, Carol. Michael.
But take a coat with you. Carol, does it depend who criticizes you?
No.
You chose who you asked to criticize you. So presumably you respect each of those people. It's not just anyone on the street.
I would like to offer this space and say, here we have a chance. It's Saturday. I'm a rabbi. We have, in Judaism, we have this great tradition of taking a Sabbath. And maybe taking a Sabbath of, what work are you not going to do on the Sabbath? Maybe on this Sabbath, I'm going to not be so critical of myself. And I can be critical of myself days 1 through 6. But today is going to be a day where I take in love. Does that sound like
Yeah,
Good start.
Moving a long time.
Okay. Obviously, most of you have done the math already. We're not just talking about me.
Well, I mean, criticizing ourselves is hard work.
It is hard.
If you really think about it, it is hard work.
Not all hard work is fruitful. Let me go to Marcella and then Debbie. I see your hand up. Thank you. Marcella.
So I know everyone is using the word criticism,
Uh-huh.
but I'm wondering if what everyone means is feedback, and there is a difference.
I like that. Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
There's a great quote that I heard that bumps into that, Marcella, that says, when you ask somebody to make an effort, you honor them.
Oh.
That just
Well,
saying
the same word. Sorry. So go ahead. Sorry.
It's all right. Let me go into to hear from Debbie, who we haven't heard from. Go ahead, Debbie.
I just want to say that you have to have a conversation with your inner critic and say, today is not a day that I want you to hang out with me.
Right.
I'll listen to you tomorrow when I'm ready, and I'll decide if I'm interested in what you have to say at that point.
That's perfect, Debbie. And that brings us in review back to I don't know if Melissa is on. Did anyone see Melissa here today?
She was here earlier.
Yes, somewhere she had been.
I'm here.
There you are. Hi, Melissa.
Hello.
Hello. So if you weren't with us last week, Melissa taught us a wonderful thing that we can do when we have that negative internalized voice, the NIV, the negative internalized voice, that instead of listening to the negative internalized voice as gospel and to listen to it and cower and go, oh, I'm terrible, that instead we can listen to the negative internalized voice and we can say, well, hello, negative internalized voice.
I like that.
Interesting to hear. Funny you should be here again, you negative internalized voice. Can you imagine saying that to a person who criticizes you? Of taking the wind out of their sails? Or somebody used the phrase of, we don't have to keep our sails up in that wind. Can you imagine not taking in the criticism and let it just flow through? The criticism that either is from somebody outside of ourselves or the criticism that's within our own biosphere. Anyway, I got some emails and comments from people who said they really enjoyed doing the hello comments to their negative voice. Does anyone who had who shared with me want to share with the group as a whole? Yeah, Maria.
I've got one. Last Saturday, my mom and I got really annoyed at something a friend said. And, we were sort of kind of thing. And then I decided to try it and do that. Hello. Told my mom about it. We both started doing hello as funny as we could. And we just had ourselves laughing and laughing. And it just really helped to sort of dissipate the annoyance and give a little bit of space to look back at it and just sort of go, oh, well, okay, right? Yeah, right. I was annoyed at this, but blah, blah, blah. So,
and that is,
I'm saying hello to everything now.
Okay. Right? To not take this all as so seriously. I want to tell you guys a story. The story is that a guru is walking, and behind her are her disciples. I don't know how the guru trade really works, but this is in the story. You get the picture. Guru's walking, and behind her are adherents. That's a weird word, but you understand. And they come across two people who are yelling. And the two people are yelling and screaming at each other. And after they pass, the guru says to the group, if they are so close physically to each other, why are they screaming with such loud volume? And one of the disciples says, we don't know the answer to that. Why don't you just tell us? And the guru says, they are yelling to try to make up for in volume for the distance between their hearts.
Sir, gonna go.
All right. Have a good time.
We're trying to make up for the distance of their hearts by the volume of their words.
Yeah.
I think this is a true thing. When we get our heart in the right place, somebody can come at me with criticism and it doesn't affect me so much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pausing here because I'm just looking at all the peoples. And I think the moral of the story is, and back to this quote, the better we can be in our hearts, the better we can be in our hearts, the less yelling, the less, and this can be within our own selves.
But
it helps to know what you want.
Yeah.
But we have to matter. We have to matter for there to be love. And I'm not sure that we live in a society that encourages us to matter to ourselves or to each other.
And we live in a psychological world pretty much now, you know, that's being determined. So to know what you want and to be in touch with how you feel is very helpful in this world we live in.
And what do we want? What do we?
What are your expectations? You know, because you're talking about this with your book. I mean, what really do you want with this book? What are your expectations? Who is your audience you're trying to reach?
I want to reach. Thank you for helping me to verbalize it. I want to help people to see that, as you just said, Michael, this is in Ahava, you just said, the society around us is not doing us a lot of favors all the time.
Not at all.
And there's a great quote from Krishnamurti who said, to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society is no indication of health. To be well adjusted, I was at a rehearsal dinner yesterday with somebody who moved to New York City. And I said, I had to move out of New York City because I found that 8 million people all colluding that stress is somehow good for you doesn't fit.
I think Candace had started to say something before. No? No? Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I love your hat.
Yeah.
We're loving Candace's hat. So if you're not on visuals on Candace, Candace has a cat perch right above her head, and it seems that she's always wearing a cat hat.
That's so cute.
The second part to your question, Michael, is what I'm trying to do in this book is to try to show people that this thing that we want, peace, love, kindness, it's there. And all we need to do, it's easier said than done, all we need to do is to see within ourselves what barriers have we built up. Case in point, our friend James, who's in prison at Pelican State Penitentiary. There's a great quote that says, the difference between a monastery and a prison is that of perspective. That's a rough quote. The difference between a monastery and a prison is that of perspective. That we all can learn to find peace wherever we are. And maybe we can't find it all the time, but we can be 1/60th better today than we were yesterday. We can make an incremental crawl towards having more love, either by putting more love out there towards other people or adding more love in towards ourselves. That's what my book is trying to get to. And to thank all of you who, I mean, you might not have all been beta readers, but over the last 2 years, I've been working a lot of these thoughts out with all of you. Okay.
No amount of intellectual ego will ever be able to penetrate the heart.
Okay, I'm gonna. Is our friend Marilyn on the line today?
I haven't seen her.
Oh, that's a shame. Marilyn's birthday is coming up in 2 days, and I texted with Marilyn, and we were going to do a little what we like about Marilyn's today, but I don't see Marilyn. I'm going to assume that Marilyn's going to watch this later, and I want to get this birthday thing in as close to Marilyn's birthday as possible. So, like we did the other day when it was Anne's birthday, I'd love to hear from 2, 3, 4 people. What's something that you've learned from Marilyn, something that you like about Marilyn? And I'll start, and it's going to sound a little bit goofy, but it's, Marilyn, you helped to teach me that there's nothing wrong with a grown adult having a very vibrant, loving relationship with stuffed animals. And I'd love to hear from 1, 2 other people. What are some things that, and I know it's odd because Marilyn's not here, but I want to get this as like a birthday card to Marilyn.
I'll say something about Marilyn. I have to admire the fact that you stick in there, even though you often get frustrated and feel unloved, you stick in there with it. And I think that I want to clap for that.
Amen. Thank you, Emily. Let's take 1, 2.
Marilyn, I like that you're very sincere. You're yourself. You don't try to be anybody else.
Thank you, Shmuley. Anne, what do you say?
I want to point out what a very excellent job Marilyn did last week with our Shekinah group. She was the host and the moderator of our Shekinah group, and she did a great job. And I just want to give her kudos for that.
Thank you, Anne. If you guys don't know, we have a separate, because look, this rabbi doesn't spend a lot of time here speaking about the God word. There's been a breakout group. The people said, we want to talk about God. And so there's been a self-organized group to talk about the God word. So that's what Anne is referring to. I'll take one more if you got. What do you got?
Marilyn, I love how you always, excuse me, are trying to learn things, whether it's looking up new ideas or whether it's looking at yourself and trying to learn more about yourself. So
I think that's
happy birthday.
Yeah. Can we all just on the count of 3 do a happy birthday? 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you guys for doing that. Let's take a moment. Maria, you're ready for us with a list of people for prayers.
I am. This is the name of people to lift up and send positive energy to: Alex, Francis, Shmuley and Maggie, Cousin Amy, Bill and Karen, Dave, Alyssa, Rob B, Kim W, Rita S, Greg, Bill and Sue, Eileen and Frank. If there is another person in our community we can send light and love to, please put their name in the chat and I will add them to the list in the new clubhouse. And for the people who aren't named, but who are in our thoughts, we send them light and love as well.
Well, thank you.
Yes, people have no problem expressing
Thank you, Maria, for doing that. We are going to set a 1-minute timer to have a moment of silence for everybody. Did the 1-minute timer show up on the screen?
Yes.
We're going to start a 1-minute timer again. Hold on. Countdown timer. There we go. There's our 1-minute timer. Well, thank you all very kindly for the minute. There was a fun, I don't know if fun's the right word, but I'm sticking with it. There was a fun discussion that was in the clubhouse about the difference between a sin and a mistake. And it was I'd never thought about the difference. And if you've not been to the Religion Outside the Box Clubhouse, if you go to rotb.org and you find links to the clubhouse, you can join our discussions there, rotb.org, and then make your way into the clubhouse.
I need help with that. Honest.
And you ain't the only one. We're still...
I couldn't get in.
Yeah. We're still beta testing, and we are going to be beta testing until everything's perfect. There was a problem where it kept being recursive and you couldn't get to the forum you were trying to get to. And we think we found the solution to that, which is to quit out of your browser and not use any link to get to the clubhouse. And this is very important, is to go to rotb.org and then on the top find the link to Clubhouse. Don't try to get there any other way, or you, like Jeff and I, and sounds like Rita, will have just this, it looks like you're in the Clubhouse, but you're not in the Clubhouse. And it's on behalf of the Clubhouse engineers, I'd like to apologize. So try it again using this method of going to the website and then into the Clubhouse. That should have worked. And then we are updating our privacy policy, as somebody pointed out. When you click on read the privacy policy, that doesn't necessarily get you to the Clubhouse any which way. Emily, you had said a thing about a fudge and sin and mistake, and do you mind? I can totally. Do you mind sharing what you learned for us on that?
The fudge story, yeah. The difference between mistake and sin, in my experience, has been if you do a sin, then you got to suffer. You got to pay the price. You know, but if you make a mistake, all you have to do is correct it. Then there's another option, and that is fudge. When I used to make fudge for the kids, I never could get it to stand up. It was always runny. It was runny. I mean, so what I did was I realized it was the concept of rename the symptom. You can do this with a lot of things. With my kid that was a slob, I could rename the symptom and do casual. With my fudge, I called it spoon fudge. I never have a failure again. It's
I love
perfect.
So, thank you, Emily, for sharing your bit of wisdom with all of us. Maybe for all of us sinners out there, we reinterpret our sin and say we made a mistake, and to take a little bit of the moral off of it. Thank you so much for sharing that with us all. I saw a hand up. Yes, Rita.
Well, I was responding to that whole question of the difference between mistake and sin. And I took some time looking things up even. And I tried to get it to the clubhouse. Instead, I sent it in an email to you, just a little bit of what I found. And it had to do with, well, mistake, to me, I make mistakes all the time. So that, that a mistake has no moral meaning, in my opinion. I did look at, I looked up sin, and I looked up first just sin and the Christian point of view of sin, which I had already heard a lot of, and I just can't go along with most of it. But then I put in Jewish definition of sin, since I am, and I got this. This is a little bit from it. It's what is sin. Like almost everything else, it depends on who you ask. The Midrash, Yalkut Shimoni on Psalms 25, describes a sort of panel discussion in which this question is posed to 4 different authorities: wisdom, prophecy, Torah, and God, each of whom gives a different definition of sin. According to wisdom, sin is a harmful deed. According to prophecy, it is death. Torah sees it as folly, and God sees it as an opportunity. And what I found most amusing about finding that, it's from the Habib, it's from the same source that Martin Buber got all of his ideas from, well, some of them anyway. And, I thought I got led back to Martin Buber again. So
you and your boyfriend, you guys.
My boyfriend, yeah. We'd be dating at time. Yeah. But here you are.
Thank you for sharing that. If you would like to continue in this discussion, please, this is what we have this clubhouse for. Also, if you would like to start a discussion in the clubhouse, because we're not all on the screen at all times, that's why we have that. And I'd love to encourage you to do. And then again, extra kudos to Anne, who looks beautiful, but you should see her as in the machine shop. She's got grease all over her, and she's under the hood of the car. It is, you have no idea how annoying and frustrating it is behind what you see in the clubhouse. It is a mess. So thank you, Anne, for that. I have a few announcements to make. Let me bring those here. There's an address on screen here, and I'm not going to ask you to do this. I'm going to tell you to do this. Please write this address down on an envelope or a postcard. This is Charles, who's a friend of James, who's in prison. Charles is hitting horrible depression. His birthday is just in, I think it might actually be Marilyn's birthday in 2 days. James has asked, would you please send a birthday card? You don't have to put a return address on it, but just that Charles can see that there are random people in the world who want to send love. You don't have to write much else. You can just put a heart in the envelope. Do not put in anything metallic, anything. Don't be fancy, because I just got rejected for sending. I sent James a whole bunch of things, and I put it in a plastic envelope. Not allowed to do that. Don't get creative. Just a regular card with nothing glued or sticky or confetti on it. Just send a card, please, to Charles, and just say, Charles, I'm a random person. I just want to send you some love. I thank you for doing that. Immediately after this service, there are small breakout groups. I heard there was some, last week we went into breakout rooms, and some of you said, hey, there wasn't enough time in the breakout room. Yeah, I get that. Here's an idea. Today it's going to be Maria. Usually it's Alex who's running the tech and you can ask to be, if you really want to continue to have a conversation with the people who were in your breakout room, at 9 o'clock when this service transitions over into private time, ask to be put in a small group together. You guys can be in your own small group. We might technically, and thank you, Maria, for having volunteered to see how well that's going to work, to please do that. This announcement, because it's always very important. It is okay not to feel okay. It's okay not to be okay. We all have hard times, and that's all right. There's no need for us to beat ourselves up for having had a hard time. In the rabbi's room after the service, hey, would you like to help me? I just wrote it down on a tiny piece of paper. That has the word retreat on it. I'm starting to think about running a religion outside the box retreat. If you would like to have input on that, show up to the little rabbi room in 10 minutes time and you can talk with us there. And other announcements. That is it for announcements. Chit chat around that. Continue your breakout rooms. Okay. I want to bring up a thought that we've had in the past. We haven't talked about it for a while, but I'm going to put some letters down here. That's a lot of letters. Tamakatri Roy.
Yeah.
Tamakatri Roy stands for the meaning of communication is in the response elicited regardless of intention. Another way of saying that is it's impact, not intent. Doesn't matter how kind I think I'm being in pointing out what might be a mistake Jane made. Or it doesn't matter how nice I think I'm being in pointing out what I think will be a mistake Jane is about to make. It doesn't matter how much I think I'm doing my child a good service by telling him, this morning I just did this, he's sitting, Jane says, hey Emmett, would you like a piece of challah bread? I made challah last night. She's passing this way. Emmett's there. Emmett, would you like a piece of challah? He says, oh yeah, that would be great, and stays seated in the chair as Jane goes the other way. And I went over and I whispered in his ear, hey dude, you're on your phone. You could have gotten up to get yourself a piece of challah. Now, it doesn't matter how loving I think what I said is. The meaning of communication is in the response elicited, regardless of intention. It makes it really hard.
Yeah.
Because we all have really good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
We really believe we do. And I believe that we do have really good intentions. They're not always heard that way. Moreover, the flip side. You know that person who just said something that really annoyed you? I doubt they thought, oh, I'm going to really annoy them.
1, 2.
Right.
Unless it's on the internet. That's something else.
Stay off of the internet.
Good point, Jordan. Thank you for that.
Jordan, thank you. That reminds me, I have a note here about next week to tell all of you. And Jordan, this is a thing that you had me blah 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 blah. The meaning of communication is in garbledygook if I can't get any words out of my mouth. Jordan, can you tell everybody about why I have a note about a phone bank on 729?
Yes, thank you, Brian. Next week, we are having a week of action at Sister District. And what it means is it's an opportunity to phone bank with us, try it once, and I promise we won't bother you again for the rest of the year. So if you come this...
what is Sister District? What the heck are you even talking about?
Oh, my goodness. Well, boy, I don't want to take up the rest of your service, Brian. Sister District is
Stop. No, I really don't mind. Because we have, like, people wanted to get into breakout groups to talk about the Supreme Court, which is nice. But words are one thing, actions are another. And if you don't like the way things are, your options are complain about it. And apparently if you complain about it enough to like-minded people, something happens. That's not true. Instead of just complaining about it, you can do something about it. So tell them, what does Sister District do?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Sister District is about people who want to support progressive candidates in important races in other states. So we work in state legislatures where progressive policy is enacted, like, gun reform and reproductive rights, really important stuff. So
we've been making phone calls into
Virginia this year. Yeah, this year is Virginia.
Because Virginia has an election coming up in November and most other states do not. And hey, if you live in Canada, we looked it up. You can also make phone calls.
It's true. It's true. And it's really important because Virginia is one of the only states left in the South where women can get an abortion after 6 weeks, and that's maybe going away if the other side wins next.
So if people want to do their very first phone bank, it's kind of fun. We do a little Zoom group and we make phone calls, and most of the time it's wrong numbers and people who hang up on you. But sometimes you get to talk to someone who's really excited that somebody cares. And so if they want to get involved next Sunday, how do we do that?
I am going to dig for the link really quickly. I have a link to sign up, and let me make sure I put that in the chat. And we would love to see you. We promise we'd take really good care of you, train you up. Let me find that link, and I will put it there in just a minute in the chat. Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah, you are welcome. This is how... It's weird that this is how democracy works, but this is how democracy works.
Yeah. So, hey, Brian, can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
I believe firmly that voter outreach is an act of love and hope. It really is. It's expressing, your values and putting it out in the world. And so that's why I do it.
So that is 2 hours from this time this week, and then 2 hours from this time next week. If you want to join us on Bring Your Friend to Phone Bank Day is next Sunday.
Okay. And let me put it in the chat right now.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you, Brian.
And in case, you probably know, I tease Jordan a little bit while he runs his phone bank, and it's adorable. Okay, folks, we're coming to the end of this hour. Please stick around for the second hour, which is not broadcast to the world. But before we go, what's a bit of wisdom that you're taking with you? What's a thing that you learned today that you want to hold on to, that you're going to keep with you? What's a thing?
Rabbi, I'd say not having barriers to love and thinking about what the barriers are.
Dismantling barriers to love. What a beautiful thing to remember for a week. Someone else have a thought that they want to share, something they want to hold on to?
Hello to our internal criticism.
Yeah, let's have a little bit of a lighter touch with regard to our internal critic and say, hello, internal critic. So it's you again telling me how much I suck. let's have a little bit of a lighter touch with that internal critic and see if we can't come into some dialogue with it. Love that. Yes, Betsy?
And remembering that the world needs our love. You know, all the people, not the pretty popular people, but the people who are neglected, the people who are in prison or annoying to other people sometimes. Everybody
needs more love. Amen, including ourselves. I'm going to sign us off. Let's say goodbye to the people. Let's do a little wave. Say goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye, all the